So if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I absolutely love gallium nitride chargers. I believe they've made such a significant impact on our technology because they've made a lot of these much larger chargers a lot smaller, a lot more dense, a lot more powerful, and they continue to improve. And since that first wave of gallium nitride chargers have come out, there is now a newer wave where they've become even more dense, even more powerful at smaller sizes. And this, along with USB-C being more and more adapted across the space, has just made charging such an easy and less cumbersome task than it used to be. Last year, I ended up buying a UGREEN 140 watt charger. I absolutely love it. I use it a lot. It is a fantastic piece of kit. I use it to charge a whole bunch of devices. And then UGREEN ended up sending over their 100 watt version, which is a little bit smaller than this. And it was also fantastic. And I use that as my main travel charger when I travel. And then I ended up picking up their 65 watt charger, which is nice and small. And this is the one that I use when I'm just packing a bag, like a backpack or something for a weekend. It's really handy to have because I can charge more than one device. I used to just use one of those little 30 watt or 15 watt brick chargers, the little tiny cube ones. But now the 65 watt allows me to charge my phone and up to 2 other devices, which is really great. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, since those original chargers that I just showed, the technology has improved even further and they become more dense. And what that means is that now chargers are getting a lot smaller with a much higher power capacity. And with that in mind, UGREEN ended up sending over their brand new Nexode Pro line to me, including the 100 watt and the 160 watt. We're going to focus a lot more on the 100 watt today, but I do have both of them. I'm going to show you both of them. And we're going to look at their size compared to the older models. We're going to look at how much they can power compared to the older models. And I've been really excited to grab these. I actually reached out to UGREEN and mentioned, I'm like, hey, you know, a lot of companies are coming out with these smaller versions of the 100 watt charger. Are you guys doing something similar? They said, what a convenient question. We'll send this one right over to you. It just come out in December, and I'm really excited to cover this. Now let's quickly go over these boxes, talk about some specs before we get these things open. These are two very similar products. The main differences are obviously going to be the total wattage, the amount of ports that they have, and how those ports operate in terms of their power. But they are very similar. They both have UGREEN's gallium infinity technology alongside with their AirPriotech, which helped them increase the density to make these a lot smaller. The 160 watt is said to be 20% smaller than the 140 watt that I have here. And the 100 watt is said to be about 37% smaller than the original 100 watt. So that's pretty cool. We will compare their size once we get them open. And they both have their thermal guard technology, which helps you, keep everything safe without overcharging or causing heat issues. So let's get these open. So for the 100 watt, we get the charger, and only downside about this packaging is that there is plastic in the packaging. UGREEN really does want to commit to a lot of green initiatives. They talk about their greener world. And gallium has improved that by, significantly reducing the size of everything. But next steps, I think UGREEN could probably replace this plastic with some kind of tissue paper and have an entirely easily recyclable paper packaging. That would be a great step, and I think that would be huge. But here's the 100 watt, and we have the 3 ports here. And let's go ahead and get the other one open. I don't believe there's anything else in here. Nope. So it's just the manual and the charger. Let's get the 160 watt open. And same kind of situation. We have this plastic. If they replace it with tissue paper, I think that would be a huge change. And here is the 160 watt, and that is a hefty little charger. We got the 4 ports here. And one big design difference between the new Nexode Pro and the original is that the Nexode Pro have a much sharper edge. It's a lot more squared, whereas the originals have a much more rounded edge. These ones don't feel as nice in the hand, but they kind of stay a little bit more stable than these ones do. But minor difference. It's just a nice little design change. It helps you tell the difference between the two products. And we've got a manual in here and user instructions. We'll get those out. So one thing I always loved about the UGREEN manuals is that they give you the per port charging. This is really important, especially when you're buying a charger for its max wattage. What a lot of people do not realize is that a lot of chargers, when you're buying them, the wattage listed on the product is not the max wattage of a singular port, it's the max wattage of the entire unit. So for example, the 160 watt, it maxes out at 140 watts on a single port, which is more than enough for almost any device. But there are a ton of even 140 watt devices that will max out at maybe 100 watts on a singular port. So you're not able to charge those higher power devices with it. So I really do appreciate that they include the single, the 2-port, 3-port, and 4-port charging diagrams so that you know exactly what kind of power you're getting out of each of the USB ports. It's a huge thing for me, and it's one of the things that I really like about UGREEN's products is that they do have a much better per port output than a lot of the other devices on the market. We got the same thing here with the 140 watt, which is really nice. Obviously there's a lot less because there are less ports, but this is great. I will put some diagrams up on the screen so that you can see how the charging is done. Now, looking at these diagrams, the most important thing is that both of these devices are able to do a very good job outputting power on a singular USB-C port, which will allow you to power something that's a little bit more power hungry, like a laptop. The other thing to obviously keep in mind is that most people are not going to be charging just a laptop. They'll want to be charging other things as well. So being able to know what you can charge in addition to that higher power item is really important, and both of these chargers do a fantastic job. So with that out of the way, let's do some size comparisons. Now, the 160 watt is said to be about the same size as the 100 watt, and it is pretty close. They are very similar in thickness. They are very similar in height, and the 160 watt is maybe just a little bit longer than the 100 watt, but considering how much larger the 140 watt was, right, you can tell that these 160 is a little bit smaller than the 140 in terms of the overall dimensions here. It's a little bit shorter, not too much, but a little bit. But the biggest difference here is in the width. The 160 watt is quite a bit chunkier, and it has those rounded edges. The other big difference is obviously the amount of ports. The 160 watt has 4 ports, whereas the 140 watt, the older version, has only 3 ports. So that's also a nice change. Now, if we look at the 100 watt, instead of it being similar in profile to the 100 watt previously, they're obviously much different. The widths are close to the same. The new one is a little bit thicker, but obviously it's significantly shorter, and it's maybe a little bit longer, but not by too much. But now the 100 watt is more similar in profile to the 65 watt. They are very similar in length. They are relatively similar in width. The 65 watt is smaller. And in terms of the overall dimensions and height, you know, it's pretty similar. The 100 watt is obviously quite a bit heavier. And that's the other thing that I noticed with these two. The 160 watt is heavier than the 140 watt. Not as noticeable, but it's definitely a lot heavier than the 100 watt here. Now, if we want to compare these to some other devices that are not UGREEN products, I have this 96 watt imitation USB-C charger that's meant for MacBooks. As you can see, it is 96 watts and a single USB-C port. And this is honestly more in tune with the 100 watt here than anything else. It is still taller. It's a little bit skinnier. It's a little bit just larger overall than the 100 watt. But if you compare it to the new 100 watt, it is a significant difference. In almost every regard, the 100 watt is smaller. It's just a little bit thicker in terms of the width here. But in length, it is smaller. In height, it is significantly smaller. And, you know, comparing it even to the old 100 watt, it is still smaller than this 96 watt. Not a very good comparison though, because this is a, you know, almost no-name third-party product. But if we compare it to, let's say, my laptop charger for my work laptop, this is a 130 watt charger, all right? Obviously, there's a lot of cables. There is the one from the wall. There's the one that goes to the laptop. It is a integrated cable, so you can't replace this if this ends up getting broken. And this is 130 watts. If we compare this to the 100 watt, you know, I can't even properly compare the sizes of these things. And if we compare it to the 160 watt, 160 watt is definitely heavier, and it's taller in terms of the thickness. But other than that, this is a much easier thing to pack than this would be. So that's where these chargers make a really big difference for me, especially when I travel for work. Having these really slims down the amount of stuff I have to pack in my bag, because instead of packing this large laptop charger, I can go ahead and pack one of these and it'll do my laptop, it'll do my phone, it'll do my Steam Deck, it'll do whatever I have with me. So let's go ahead and talk about that. All right, so we're gonna get these plugged into my surge protector here. Put the 160 there, we'll put the 100 here. And what we're gonna do first is we're just gonna charge just a laptop. So I'm gonna grab my parents' laptop here, open this one up, and this laptop requires 60 watts to properly charge. And most laptops won't use the higher capacity charging of the 160 watt. Most of them will not need 140. Most of them won't even need 100. But we're going to do just that first. And just note that if you are going to use over 60 watts, you're going to have to make sure you have a cable that is able to support over 60 watts. This cable here is a 240 watt cable from UGREEN. They had sent this over previously. And we're going to go ahead and use this one with the laptop. So we're going to plug it in there. Plug it in there. As you can see, we're charging. No issues, no errors. We're charging at, the maximum that this laptop is able to handle, which is 60 watts, but that single port is able to do 140. Now we'll move this cable over and we'll do it into the 100 watt. And we got the same situation, right? So we're gonna keep this on the 100 watt and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add a phone. So I've got my phone here. This is an S9 Plus. And UGREEN sent over some cables. We got a USB-C to USB-C cable we'll use. We will get that plugged into C2, and we will plug our phone in. And we get our phone charging, 23 minutes until full, which is fantastic. And our laptop is still charging at regular, and there are no issues with the charger. Now let's go ahead and add something into the USB-A port. So for the USB-A port, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna charge my noise canceling headphones. And the reason I'm doing this particular arrangement is these are the kinds of things I would normally take traveling with me. So we're gonna go ahead and plug this one in. We have a USB-A to USB-C charger cable here. And I'm gonna go ahead and plug that into the headphones. And our phone, still charging. Our laptop, still charging. And now our headphones are charging as well. And the reason for this is now the USB port that is doing the laptop is still doing 65 watts while all three ports are being utilized. The port for the phone is doing 15 watts now, and the port for the headphones is also doing 15 watts. So pretty great that I'm able to charge all these devices at once. Now the only issue here is that if I wanted to use something that requires more power than the phone can go anywhere from 5 to 45 watts in terms of the input. It'll just change how fast the phone is charging, and it'll really depend on usage. But something like my Steam Deck requires 45 watts minimum to be able to play and charge the device at the same time, where the battery is going to outpace how quickly it is discharging while playing a game. So if I were to add that into this mix, this USB-C port that I'm removing from the phone and putting into here is only going to be able to do 30 watts, so it's not going to be enough. However, if we went ahead and moved everything over to the 160 watt, that issue is completely eliminated. I am able to charge my Steam Deck because now both of these ports, C1 and C2, are both going to do 65 watts each. If I pull the USB-A port over, that is going to be doing 15 watts. If I grab another USB-C to USB-C cable for C3, and I plug that in, that is going to be doing 15 watts as well. So that is a major difference because now we can do 65 watts on C1 and C2. So the laptop and the Steam Deck are both getting as much or more than what they need to be able to perform at their optimal performance, 65 watts each. And then C3 and the USB-A port are both getting 15 watts. So my headphones and my phone are still getting more than what they need to charge properly. The phone can go all the way up to 45 watts, but at 15 watts, it is still charging plenty fast. It is doing a great job. So if I was traveling around with my Steam Deck, I would be much more likely to bring around the 160 watt because I would probably be charging multiple devices like this at once. However, normally when I'm traveling for work, if I'm gonna be playing games with friends, if you watched my video from last week, I typically end up bringing my gaming laptop instead of the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck's usually if I'm just playing on my own. So the 100 watt is a much better solution for me because it is a much smaller device, a lot easier to pack, and I only really need to charge 3 things at once. I can do my phone, my laptop, and my headphones all at once with this, and it's more than what I need. However, if I do want the additional power, the 160 watt does give me that ability to charge all of these devices at once and do a great job doing it. It's just a lot larger, so if I don't need to bring something this big, I won't. I don't typically bring the 140 watt with me unless I have my Steam Deck, and the 160 watt's gonna fall in that same category. The 100 watt is definitely gonna be my main choice. And again, the really nice thing about this 100 watt is that I can bring a bunch of my USB-C cables that I normally have in my bag anyways, a USB-A cable for USB-A to USB-C, and maybe a USB-A to micro USB, and I can charge literally every single thing I have in my bag with one singular charger. Don't have to bring a charger for my phone and a charger for my laptop. I don't have to bring a charger for my Steam Deck, a charger for my laptop. I don't have to bring, you know what I mean? I can bring one singular brick and this can charge every single piece of technology in my bag. It is fantastic, and it is one of my favorite uses for these UGREEN chargers over the past year with the older Nexode versions. And with the Nexode Pro, it just makes them even smaller and even more convenient to bring around. The reason I got the 65 watt charger was because I found that I wasn't using the 100 watt all that often because its larger size just didn't benefit me all too much. I did have to make some sacrifices because I would only be able to charge my laptop and my phone, or my laptop and my headphones at once. I couldn't do all 3 or else the laptop wouldn't get enough power. But now with this, I could charge them all at the same time in the airport, in my hotel room, at the office. And this is going to be my favorite device, I think, for the next little while until something even crazier comes out. But I absolutely love the size of this. I love the profile, and it is going to make a huge difference when I pack my bags. One of the other really great things about these chargers is that they are compatible with so many different products because they support so many different protocols. These both support power delivery. The 100 watt does power delivery 3.0, whereas the 160 watt does power delivery 3.1. They support quick charging, they support Apple's charging standard, and they also support Samsung's 45 watt super fast charging 2.0. So as long as you have it plugged in a configuration where the port that you're using for the Samsung phone or tablet or laptop is able to support 45 watts, so depending on other things you have plugged in, you can go ahead and plug in your Samsung device, and as you'll see, you will get the blue light and we'll get the Samsung super fast charging 2.0. That's only 100 watt. If we go ahead and move it over to the 160, we'll have the same thing. So really nice that you're able to get all that kind of support, and it just means that these devices can literally charge anything you have in your bag. Now, I don't have a MacBook here to show you, but these products work incredibly well with the MacBook line, whether it's a MacBook Air, a MacBook Pro. The MacBook Pro will use all the way up to 140 watts, but that is it using, the maximum power, no battery usage at all. You can use lower wattage chargers, and it'll just end up using a little bit of the battery as you're using the charger if you're doing really intensive tasks. But if you're not, they will still be able to charge. A 65 watt charger will be able to do it pretty much no problem. It'll just charge a little bit slower. These are a fantastic device if you do have a Mac. Again, if I did have a Mac to show you it charging with it, I would. With all that said, it is really impressive what all these companies are doing right now with gallium nitride chargers. UGREEN is doing a great job. I've been so happy with the charger so far. As I mentioned, I use the 100 watt so much. I use the 65 watt since I bought it in I think November. I use this one quite a bit now as well. It's one of my main travel chargers whenever I don't need anything above 65 watts. But when I do, I'll take the 100 watt. And then if I need a lot more juice, I'll take the 140 watt. But the fact that these are getting smaller or they're getting more powerful, where the difference between these two in size is a little bit minimal, but the power difference is pretty significant. The biggest one though is this 100 watt. The size difference between these two devices is so huge. I'm so happy. The biggest reason I bought the 65 watt is because it was smaller. Now its purpose is basically null and void, and I could probably give this to one of my family members because the 100 watt is close to the same size, just a tiny little bit bigger. It does all the same things, and it has the same number of ports, so I don't lose any ports or anything like that. I'm just gaining with the 100 watt, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm so happy with it, and I'm really excited to use this as my main charger going forward. As always, I will leave links down in the description below where you can go ahead and check out the UGREEN Nexode Pro 100 watt and 160 watt chargers on Amazon. They are going to be affiliate links, and you are in no way obligated to use them, but if you do, they do help support the channel. Both products are currently 15% off with a coupon, so you can go ahead and check that out as well. Fantastic prices for both of these devices, and I mean, overall, I'm super happy. As I've mentioned, I'm going to be using this 100 watt so much. This is going to get so much use this year, so we'll see how well it does. We'll see if I run into any issues with it. The 160 watt is going to be reserved for whenever I need a little bit of that extra juice. It's nice that it's got 4 ports instead of the 3 on the 140 watt, so that's why the 140 watt is probably not going to get used as much. And as I mentioned, my 65 watt is probably going to go completely unused, and this 100 watt may just stay in a particular room in case people need it, but this 100 watt is definitely going to be my main charger going forward. And with all that said, I really do hope you found this video helpful, and if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can leave those down in the comment section below, and I will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, Thought Slime and Step Back. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any of my other videos where I talk about products, whether it's a review, an unboxing, or a first impression, you can check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.